Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make potato gnocchi pasta, which is super easy to make at home and then really delicious, and you can put whatever favourite pasta sauce you want to on top of it. So all you need for this one is plain flour, some parmesan cheese, potatoes of course, 1 egg and some salt and pepper. So before we can actually start making our pasta, we need to peel and then steam our potatoes. So I'll show you how to do that first. I'm using 5 potatoes because mine are quite small, but if your potatoes are a little bit bigger, you only need to use 4. Once we've peeled all of our potatoes, the next step is to steam them. So you need to boil about 3 centimetres of boiling water in a pot, but instead of putting the potatoes straight in the water, we're going to steam them. If you don't have a special steaming pot, you can always use a colander. And this is just so our potatoes don't get really heavy and full of water, which will mean our gnocchi is a lot lighter when we make it. So we'll just pop those in there. We're going to pop the lid back on top, and we're going to let them steam for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to come back. Alright, so our potatoes have been steaming for about 15 minutes, and a good way to check if they're done is to just put a skewer through. And if the skewer goes through easily like this one does, then you know they're ready to be mashed. The next step is to mash our potatoes. If you don't have one of these mashing tools, you can always use a fork instead. Once we've got to this stage of the mashing process, we can change to using a wooden spoon, and we can season our mashed potato with some salt and pepper. Once you're happy with your mashed potato, we're going to just crack and whisk 1 egg. And then we're going to add this egg straight into our bowl. To turn our potato into our dough, we're going to add 2 cups of plain flour and 1/4 cup of parmesan cheese. To start off with, I'm just going to add the cheese and 1 of the 2 cups of flour. And I'll start mixing that, and then we'll slowly combine the rest of the flour after. Once it gets to this consistency, we're going to start kneading it and forming it into a dough with our hands. So we want to make sure our hands are nice and clean before we start doing this part. Once your dough is beginning to form in your bowl, we're going to turn it out onto a clean and floured surface. This is where we're going to use a 2nd cup of flour. We're going to sprinkle it over a clean surface. We want quite a good layer of flour here. Then we're going to grab our dough. We're just going to begin to knead it, combining a bit more of that flour as we go. So I've been kneading my dough for about 2 minutes, and it's beginning to get to the consistency we want it at, which is more smooth and elastic than it is sticky. To do this, I'm continuing to add more flour as I go, and I'm kneading it into the dough. A good way to know how to knead is to use the palm of your hand, and you're almost folding the dough back on top of itself while you're kneading it, just like this. So this is looking pretty good to me. I might add a little bit more flour, but it's getting to be pretty elastic. Once you're happy with your dough, we're going to move on to the most fun but also the trickiest part, which is actually making our gnocchi. So to do this, we're going to pull off a little bit of the dough at a time and roll this almost into a snake, making sure you have lots of flour on your hands as well as on the surface you're using. So once you kind of get it into about a 2 centimetre thick little snake like this, you want to use a fork and chop it into mini rectangles just like this. Then, to make our actual gnocchi, we're going to dip our fork in some of our leftover flour, take our little gnocchi piece, and then use our finger to push it into the fork and then roll it down. And you should end up with a little gnocchi piece like this. If that's a little bit too tricky, I can show you an easier way to get our gnocchi. We just take our little gnocchi pasta, pop some more flour on our fork, and just press it down in the middle, and you still end up with a pretty cute gnocchi piece as well. So I'll just show you guys that once more because it is a little bit tricky. So we just take a little piece of our dough off like this, roll it into a snake, use our fork to cut it into little pieces, and then dip our fork in our flour, take our little piece and press it into the fork to roll it up into a little pasta. So once we've finished rolling up all our beautiful gnocchi, we're going to sprinkle them with a little bit more flour just so they don't stick together once they're cooking. Once you've done that, you just want to bundle them all up and we'll take them over ready to be cooked. And finally, it's time to cook our gnocchi. So to do that, we want to put it into boiling salted water. I'm going to dump these guys in first, and then these guys. Usually they take about 2 minutes to cook, but we'll know they're ready because they'll start rising to the top. Cool, so as you can see, they're beginning to rise now, and as they do that, you sort of scoop them back out. And there we have some delicious potato gnocchi. I'm gonna put some tomato sauce on mine, but they would also taste delicious with something like pesto.